everyone. My name is Clodagh Monaghan, and I'm going to give you a wee bit of insight into the journey I've had over the last few years and how I got to where I am in my role in Microsoft. So, I'm a big lover of all things crafty. I love seeing projects move through the motions, so from beginning to end. And in my previous career, it was very fitting because I was a technology and design teacher. I also taught construction and motor vehicle studies, so that always raises a few eyebrows. And for me, I loved working with the pupils to design and create innovative projects, and I feel that I can turn my hand to anything crafty, whether it be the wiring up of a light switch or using a circular saw. So I'm nearly handier to have around the house than my own husband.
For me.
And and when I'm not crafting or making projects, you'll normally find me being walked or chased by my golden doodle. Um, I've spoken to many people and they all wonder how I made this transition from teaching into tech. And the short answer is that I've always had a real interest in tech, but I always thought there's no way I'm smart enough. Like I can't code. I could never do it. And it was just during COVID that an opportunity arose to apply for Microsoft Data and AI Academy in Belfast. And fast forward 4 interviews and 4 exams and 2 group presentations later, I'm now working for the largest tech company and I'm absolutely loving it. I've learned so much already and I have such a long way to go, but it's the best decision that I've ever made. And I'm now going to pass you over to Cathal, who's going to take you on his journey.
Thank you very much indeed, Clodagh. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cathal Tierney, and I'll give you a bit of an insight into my road to Microsoft and becoming a data and AI consultant. It's also been a pretty unconventional journey too, but it has been a lot of fun. My background is actually in English and English literature. My degree was in English literature, philosophy, and French, and then I majored in English lit. I did a PGC in secondary English and qualified as a teacher way back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth in 1998. After a 2 year stint teaching English as a foreign language in Barcelona, I taught for 20 years in a grammar school up until June last year. One of my great passions, apart from writing and reading, was actually music, and I was a nightclub DJ playing mostly house and techno for the best part of 20 years too. So it was actually the transition from analog DJing and playing vinyl to digital DJing with WAVs and MP3 that really ignited for me a love for technology. Around this time, I got into sound editing and film editing, which actually led me to start the film and media departments in my school. Couple all of this with the dramatic technological convergence of the early 2000s and the birth of Web 2.0, it all felt really exciting and I definitely embraced it. I suppose it's fair to say I was an early adopter of technologies and teaching from Blogger, Twitter, Classroom, Teams, OneNote, Flipgrid, and I actually ended up becoming the principal examiner for Cambridge International A-Level in Media. And the focus there was on digital as well as traditional media too. And I always loved how technology could empower me and my students to go further in our learning journey together. Believe it or not, I'm a very keen sports person and I've always been obsessed with the data insights in the sort of sports that I'm doing, be it increasing the levels of my VO2 max using my Garmin or competing against other athletes virtually on Strava. I just love the way that data can transform my fitness levels. And like Clodagh, I applied for the Data and AI Academy this time last year, which is kind of like a cross between a master's and a 12-week interview compressed into 3 months. It was really brutal, pretty tough, especially pivoting from teaching Shakespeare to learning how to become a data consultant. But I think it just goes to show that anything can be learned if you've got the desire to do so. So back over to you, Clodagh, to talk about the skills needed in your role.
Thank you. So like I said, I've always been fascinated by the tech industry and the advancements in technology throughout the years. So from being a pupil myself and moving into the classroom as a teacher, I've seen the developments firsthand in the classroom. So the likes of introducing our laser cutters or 3D printers, how software is developed. And I work very closely with pupils in my room on iterative design and regularly show them a video about an Emma watch. And if you haven't seen it, definitely put it on your to-do list. And myself and the pupils were just fascinated about how you can move through each of the concept stages and how technology and data and artificial intelligence all come together to create something to counteract symptoms of Parkinson's. And I just thought, like, I want to be a part of that change. Like, that's amazing to think that somebody can give that much. And as people were surrounded by data every day, so our smartphones, our laptops, fitness trackers, social media, they're constantly collecting massive amounts of data. And as time goes on, it's just going to become more and more important. So that's why I wanted to be part of that change. I wanted to make an impact. And the skills that I developed in teaching have helped me so much in my career here as a consultant in Microsoft. For example, the number one is communication. Communication is vital to the consultancy role because I need to be able to articulate clearly my understandings and my work to other members of my team and to the customer themselves. Being a big team player, again, in school, you're working as part of a department, you're working with senior management, leadership teams, and in Microsoft, again, it's so team orientated. You need to be open to feedback, you need to take on new ideas from your team, and because you're working with some of the smartest people in the industry, just absorb it all and take as much as you can in and just celebrate success together. Everything's done with your team in mind, and you're always focusing on what can you do to contribute and motivate your team to make the biggest impact. And lastly, I would say just being curious. Don't shut yourself down to any new ideas or challenges. Just want to learn the different technologies, reach out to subject matter experts, get their advice, get their guidance, because curiosity opens so many doors here in Microsoft and allows you the opportunity to grow and just be the best version of yourself and be the best consultant that you can be. And back over to you, Cathal.
Thanking you. And I know you weren't referring to me whenever you were talking about the smartest people at Microsoft
Oh,
there.
well,
And I just like to echo what you were saying there as well, Clodagh. You know, the skills that I learned in the classroom were completely transferable to my life in Microsoft. As a teacher, your core skills are empathy and sensitivity. And as a consultant, the ability to listen and respond to the needs and desires of your customers is absolutely vital. At Microsoft, we believe in human centered design, responsibility, and ethics. And I really believe that technology shouldn't be just for the sake of it, but actually how it can empower and transform people's lives. Whenever I was a student of literature and an English teacher, one of my favorite texts was actually Frankenstein. And we know, of course, that Dr. Victor was a narcissistic megalomaniac who wanted to create a being for his own glory. And ultimately, his downfall was architected by his inability to empathize and to understand, and I suppose ultimately find a real world proper use for his creation beyond the mere creation of it. I suppose analytical skills are and attention to detail are hugely important as well. Just last week, I had to give a solo half-hour presentation, and that was pretty daunting, I have to say, to business stakeholders of a big telecoms company. And it wasn't only a technical demo, but a sort of like a business value demo as well of a data governance solution and how that solution could empower the organization to achieve more. I just actually finished up writing a 20 page documentary guidance for the customer after the demo. So there's all those teachers of a student of English and an English teacher being used once again. Creative thinking, vitally important too. And one of my colleagues uh, absolutely nailed it last week whenever she said to me that we're not actually hired for what we know, but it's our ability to learn and to problem solve that sort of makes us valuable to Microsoft. And kind of alluding to what Clodagh had said earlier as well, network building is so important. We really need to leverage the expertise of others, but also to lend your expertise as well and not be afraid to kind of put yourself forward. I've actually been in the position recently where I've taught somebody way more experienced than me something new, and that was a real buzz. And we actually have a program of reverse shadowing where someone senior shadows someone new like myself, and we both learn from the process. And that's really cool. And I feel so lucky to be so well supported and empowered. And it definitely does help to defeat that imposter syndrome, and just the idea that you're not alone as well. So back to you, Clodagh, to chat about your role in data.
mhm. So at the minute, I am working as part of my shadowing experience with a team where they are designing a system to transform livestock traceability within England, and then it'll eventually be rolled out in Wales, Scotland, and the north of Ireland. Their vision is to modernise and transform the existing legacy systems, provide new insight to industry, increased access via digital channels, improve animal husbandry and disease control for the 100 million animals within the UK, leading to an increase in food safety across the nation. So with this is all being done via the Azure platform, and they're building out this traceability solution across many key pillars. And the key pillar that I'm involved in is obviously the data platform. So at the minute, I am focusing on learning and upskilling in the use of bicep templates and in the Databricks technology to enhance the speed in which you can query the data and provide meaningful analysis. Like I said previous, I was never a coder, and I always found that I was never smart enough to even think about doing it. And look what I'm doing now, and it just shows what having a growth mindset can actually do. Back to you, Cathal.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think it's actually amazing that we both started at the same time, but we're doing entirely different work, aren't we?
Yeah.
Because I think it's fair to say that you're involved in prepping the analytics estate and working what we call the data landing zone, whereas I'm currently shadowing in what's called the data management landing zone, and that's focused on data governance. And as I said earlier, working with a telecoms provider to help manage their data estate. I suppose when we think about the three V's of big data, volume, variety, and velocity, we have a vast amount of big data that we're trying to gain insights from, learn patterns from, and use machine learning to predict outcomes from. And I think it's fair to say in the past that many enterprises gathering all of this big data basically have propagated data silos along their various lines of business. So marketing would have vast amounts of data and finance vast amounts of data, etc. So that would lead to a sort of fragmented data estate. And that leads to sort of inconsistencies and redundancies in data management. Often data management and data management policies have been manual, and that potentially causes compliance and data exposure risks. Up to 93% of enterprise data is actually in the dark or undiscoverable. And then the volume of data doubles every year. So the solution that I've been working with is called Microsoft Purview, and that offers businesses the ability to traverse their data estate seamlessly, and it enables large-scale data discovery and powers data-driven decisions. So it's a data discovery and governance platform, and these are sort of my key areas of interest. And I suppose I'm also learning a little bit now about building AI without data science with Project Bonsai. And that's sort of creating AI with minimal coding. This involves machine teaching, or what we call reinforced learning, which is different to machine learning. It can act as a standalone tool or help employees to aid their decision making. And I suppose I just read a really nice comment on what reinforced learning is. It's compared to going to France and actually trying to learn the language on site. And you get a puzzled look from a French person if you're wrong, and you'd be rewarded with a croissant if you're right. And Bonsai was recently deployed by PepsiCo in their production of Cheetos. And Cheeto puffs are made on a machine called an extruder. And historically, an operator manually selected a few Cheetos coming off this machine at defined intervals, checking for qualities like shape and bulk density, and adjusting sort of inputs if something was off. But the Project Bonsai solution is able to monitor the product almost continuously, and using sensors to oversee those qualities. It knows immediately if a product strays outside of a defined range, and it can make recommendations to be approved of by an operator, or able to adjust settings itself if working autonomously. So this AI algorithm learns through trial and error, as well as feedback from operators. So that's using that reinforcement learning model. In the simulation, the AI can simulate a day's run in about 30 seconds. So you can imagine how much wastage and inefficiency this reduces. And it doesn't replace the experts either. It can aid them or run autonomously to empower them to be creative and to use their knowledge elsewhere. And personally, I'm just really excited to be at the cutting edge of such new and highly transformative technologies. And I suppose on that note, Clodagh is going to talk a little bit more about Microsoft culture.
Thank you. So we're just going to finish up with highlighting Microsoft's culture and the huge emphasis that they place on diversity and inclusion. Microsoft's mission statement is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. So, with this, we strive to create an environment that brings the power of diversity to life, that where people of different backgrounds, ethnicities, and experiences all thrive in both their professional and their personal lives. There's so much more in Microsoft than the technical work you do. For example, Cathal and I are both part of the Families ERG, and we actively contribute our ideas. And we've recently hosted and released a family planning podcast. We're also part of the Azure Cloud and AI newsletter, and we've just recently signed up for the Embrace Mentoring program. So there are so many different groups that you can get involved in and areas that you can be part of to make you feel like a connected and valued employee.
Absolutely, and it was that growth mindset that really
Mhm.
attracted me to work for Microsoft and kind of, work so hard to kind of get here as well. And that
Absolutely.
move from a know-it-all to a learn-it-all culture was really, really important for me, especially having that background in education as well. And to echo what you said as well, Clodagh, that focus on diversity and allyship in the workplace, it's so refreshing and it's also so important. I
Yeah.
was lucky enough to work on comms for International Women's Day with a focus on how we can become better allies in the workplace. I just love the pace of change in Microsoft as well. The fact that the technologies are always evolving. That there's no point in just learning one thing and sticking with it forever, but always trying to sort of upskill, learn something new, try to sort of be ahead of the curve in some ways as well. There's great career potential already. Like I've only been here 5 months, but I've taken training in change adoption management, which really excites me. And I suppose briefly what that is the idea that if you build it, they will come. If you've got a nice big shiny solution that just by the virtue of the fact you've got a shiny solution, everyone will love it. Uh,
Yeah.
they won't. It's you have to ensure that there's buy-in from every single sort of aspect of your organization, from the bottom to the top, and that sort of change happens effectively, and that's properly managed. So that's been really exciting for me, and I have to say I've just absolutely loved working here and feel like I'm very much at home now.